What is going on, everybody? This is Jackson from JD Sports Zone, and today I have a very special episode. I'm here with 92.9 The Games, Mr. Hometown Take, Dylan Matthews, and a good personal friend of mine, former host of Sports Pack, Richard Reed. Richard, Dylan, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this. And how are y'all summers going?
I'll let my post grad my recent graduate Richard kick things off, man. First, actually, hold on. First and foremost, let me say congratulations to both of y'all. Y'all both currently just recently just graduated from the University of West Georgia. So I'm clapping it up for y'all, man.
Thank you.
Congrats on the
Thank you.
graduation. I've obviously had the pleasure of knowing y'all from, I think, pretty much up, not maybe your entire Wolves career, but pretty much y'all entire collegiate career, man. So I've seen y'all grow, and I just want to say I'm very proud and very thankful to get to know y'all and see y'all's, see y'all from where y'all started to where y'all at now. I just want to say I'm very proud of y'all, man. And I know y'all are gonna have nothing but success post collegiate career. So I can't wait to see what y'all get, everything y'all get into in postgraduate career. So congratulations to y'all, man.
Thank you, Dylan. I appreciate it. And like I said, we've known you majority of our college careers, and you've been great, giving us a lot of insight as to what is actually necessary to break into this industry. So I appreciate you for being there to be kind of like a mentor for us.
Yeah. No, I truly appreciate you as well. Taking time out of your day during media days to come on Sports Out of Pocket, provide feedback and boosting our on-air presence and, our on-air skills. So kind of leading to what we do nowadays. So we truly appreciate your time, man.
Man, of course, anything for y'all, man. And if there's any, hopefully our professional careers continue to cross, and I know we'll definitely stay in touch for sure. And if there's anything y'all ever need, y'all always know where to find me. But now that y'all in the professional career, once y'all start getting major jobs and stuff, I might start reaching out to y'all for help. So the tables
Sounds
might be
good.
turning soon, man. Depending on what y'all got going on. So we gonna see.
Let's do it. Let's help each other.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, I do want to start off with the NBA. The NBA playoffs are going on, but we're going to specifically talk strictly the Atlanta Hawks. They wrapped up their season, got knocked off by the Knicks in the playoffs, and now the NBA draft is coming up. So I want to start off with Dylan. Dylan, what are your thoughts on the whole Hawks season as a whole, and who do you want with the 8 and number 23 picks heading into this 2026 draft?
To start off with the Hawks season, man, I was very impressed on just how the Hawks were able to really turn their season around. It really felt like a tale of two seasons when you talk about how they started the season and what they got to the same point in the season, I think, and they got to ultimately where I wanted to see them go, but they got there very differently from how we thought they were going to be there originally. When you talk about having Trae Young, Kristaps Porzingis, and the core that you thought you were gonna have the entirety of the season versus what you ended with, which is trading Trae Young, trading Kristaps Porzingis, bringing it obviously moving forward with Jalen Johnson as your 1A alpha dog Batman type of role, and bringing in a CJ McCollum who was a big help, Nikhil Alexander Walker, who obviously won most improved player, along with having Dyson Daniels and Yeka Kongwu. So really figuring out who your core is for the future moving forward. So I was very pleased that they were able to not only make the tough decision of, okay, we know it's not working with Trae Young or Kristaps Porzingis. That experiment is over. Let's move forward. Let's trade those pieces, see what we can get, see if we can still salvage the season, which they did, obviously, being out of the making, not having to be in the play-in round for the first time since they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals back in that 2021 season. And so, given the New York Knicks, really the only fight they've seen so far, I think they'll have a tough
Yeah.
fight with the Spurs in the NBA Finals. But so far, you're the only team that's beaten the Knicks in the NBA playoffs, which is kind of crazy to think about. So, from where they started versus to how they finished, I feel very, very confident about the Atlanta Hawks. And then moving on to free agency, and now we're about to get into the NBA draft. I'm feeling very good about their future because you talk about the core of Jalen Johnson, again, Nikhil Alexander Walker, Dyson Daniels, Onyeka Kongwu, and we'll see if they end up keeping a CJ McCollum. We'll see if they end up keeping the Jonathan Kuminga and, moving forward with them and making them part of the, maybe the short-term or long-term plans there. But as far as the NBA draft goes, there are a few players I'm looking at. Now, before I get into some specific players, I want to kind of give you overall what I'm looking for and really what the Hawks, I think, need. The Hawks' two biggest needs, in my opinion, are a true point guard and they need a center. They need a true center. They need a big dude because Onyeka Kongwu, I've been saying this for years. Onyeka Okongwu needs to be playing the four. Or if you
Yes.
really want him to be your backup center, he
Yes.
could be your backup center. But to me, Onyeka Okongwu is a stretch four, especially now that he's really become a very solid 3-point shooter. He can be a stretch four for the Hawks. But going back to point guard, I want a point guard, not that obviously we saw in Trae Young, but a point guard who can shoot the three, but is honestly a little bit more of pass first, a guy that can really facilitate, knows how to get, knows how to keep the ball moving, and knows how to kind of be that floor general that the Hawks need, but could also can stretch the floor, hit the 3-point shot, maybe even have a little bit of a success getting to the basket. So that's what I'm looking for in a Hawks point guard. And then as far as the big man goes, I honestly would rather see the Hawks go get a big man in free agency because I think there are a lot of good big men that are going to be available in free agency this year versus there are really no point guards that are going to be available in free agency. So I'd rather see the Hawks go draft a point guard, and I'll get into some names here in a second. But I'd rather see the Hawks draft a point guard with that 8th overall pick, and then if you want to, maybe go try out a big man and see who you can get at 23 as far as big men go, then you can do that.
See,
Now,
Dylan, real quick,
yeah,
I
yeah,
just
go
want to
ahead, go
jump
ahead.
in real quick here.
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
very interested to see what direction you're going to go with the point guard pick because I'm thinking the exact opposite. I'm
Really?
in love with the prospect as a center here that I think would be good to take 8th overall because my thing is the only point guard I'm really just in love with in this draft class
Hmm.
is Darius Acuff from Arkansas. He's really the only player at that position I would really be willing to invest in if I was the Atlanta Hawks.
I do want to, and I
Yeah,
do want
go
to
ahead, Joe.
interject here.
Yeah,
Because I think Darius Acuff is going to be off the board by 8. You look at
Exactly.
guys like Keaton Wagler, who was a big piece for the Illinois offense.
that's what I like.
Leading the Big Ten in like 3-point percentage or top three standings out there. But you also look at the bigger side of things. As he said, Onyeka Okongwu is going to be a stretch four. You have a guy like a Day Mara out there from
That's
Michigan.
who I like. That's who I like.
So
See,
yeah,
now, if they go get Mara with the 8th overall pick, I actually wouldn't be too mad at that. Mara is kind of one of the few big men that I do like in this draft. So if they go get Mara, I wouldn't be upset at that. So because I mean he could be that true rim protector for you. I do like, his touchdown low as well because I do also if you go get a center in this draft, I not only want him to be a rim protector, but I do want a guy that you could and again, this isn't going to, it's not like you're going to ask him to do this a lot, but I do want someone who is capable of, giving us a little baby hook or a jump hook down low and have some touch around the rim. Kind of similar to what Onyeka Okongwu has. He has really good touch around the rim too. But again, now that his 3-point shot has really developed, you'll be able to use him to space the floor a lot more. But Richard, I want to go back to what you were saying about Darius Acuff. I do first and foremost agree with Jackson. I don't think he's going to be there anyway,
Oh
but
no, he won't. He won't.
yeah, but let's say he is there. To me, and I hate to put him in this. Well, there's not really wrong putting him in this same conversation, but to me, he's a little too close to Trae Young for me, as far as a guy that can shoot a 3-point shot. He's a really good scorer, and I just feel like he maybe is a little too ball dominant for me as a point guard. Now again, you never know how his NBA game is going to shape out, but I want somebody who's honestly a little bit more pass first because we don't need to necessarily bring in a point guard who is going to be able to be like you give him the ball and be like, hey, go get me a bucket when we need it to lighten the shot clock because we already have those guys. We have a Jalen Johnson for that. We have an Akeem Alexander Walker for that, and we'll see. If we keep a CJ McCollum, he could be that guy for us too, maybe in a 6-man role or what have you. But as far as point guard go, I do like Wagler, who you were just talking about, Jackson. Some other guys that I do like as well too. I am also I do like Mikael Brown, the point guard out of Louisville. I do think he could be a good fit for the Hawks.
He could
I
be good,
would
bro.
like a bigger guard as well too, because again, with the way today's NBA is going, I do feel like you need a little bit bigger guards to stop. Because look, if the Hawks are going to ultimately get to where we want to get to, which is the NBA Finals, be able to contend for Eastern Conference championships and make it to the NBA Finals. I think they're going to need a bigger guard. You're going to need somebody to slow down the Jalen Brunsons of the world. And if we're talking NBA Finals, you're going to need somebody to slow down the SGAs of the world. Now you do have good defenders on the perimeter already, but still, I would just like a little bit bigger of a point guard. And so when you talk about Mikael Brown being 6'5", And I think he has all the things that you would want out of a point guard. Again, can score. He can also get to the rim, has that athleticism. He's not the greatest three-point shooter, but he can do it, shooting 34% from three this season with Louisville. So he has that in his arsenal, and that's something you can develop as far as his jump shot goes. So Mikael Brown, and also, like we talked about, Keaton Wagler, and then also I'm gonna give you one more as well too that I've been looking at. Kingston Flemings, the point guard out of Houston, is a guy I like as well too. So those are probably the top three guys that I'd be looking at, and I think all three of those guys should be there for you, or at least one or two of them should be there for you at 8. So those are probably my top three guys as far as point guard that I would be looking at. But I would not be mad at Mar out of Michigan either. That if we end up getting him at 8, I couldn't be mad at that either.
Yeah,
I
those are.
do want
Go ahead.
to, Richard.
Oh, you can go ahead, Jackson.
I do want to throw out a hypothetical question, throw it to the wall and see what sticks. And I want to start off with Richard with this question because you look at this Atlanta Hawks offseason, say hypothetically you do retain CJ McCollum. You have
Mhm.
Dyson Daniels, Nikhil Alexander Walker, Onyeka Okongwu. Say you move Jalen Johnson to the 3, and then you have a
Yeah.
5 and you pick up a Day Mara. Are you willing to give up on Zachary Brisochet this early so far? And I want to throw it to Richard first.
I wouldn't say I'm completely giving up on him, only because he would still be on the roster. So there'll still be opportunity for him to get in and shine if if needed with that kind of setup. But if I was to go out and trade and look to like trade for a superstar, like how people have talked about trading for Jalen Brown, which I do not agree with, for one, just to put that out there. But that's when I would say yes, I'd be okay with giving up on Zachary, only if I was like making a big trade with another franchise to bring in a star player of some kind. But if you're just gonna keep your eighth overall pick, get a guy like Ade Mara, who I completely support going out and drafting. I like the 3 point guards you mentioned, Dylan. I think there's some limitations on what Kingston Flemings can be, but I do think his mid-range shot is incredible. But if you do go out and get a guy like Ade Mara, I don't think you're giving up on Zachary because he'll still be on the roster. The only way you're giving up on him is if you put him in a trade package for a bigger superstar in this league.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Richard. The only way I'm getting rid of Reese Shea, not having him on the roster, is if you trade for him. And like you said, if you're just going out and drafting, there's no harm because of one, he's, first overall pick, but still, he's not really costing you any money. Like, he's not costing any
Right.
money like that because he's still on a rookie contract. So unless you're going to trade him, there's no bad side of having him on the roster still, with him on that rookie deal. And then obviously once it becomes time that you got to pay him, then obviously you have to make that decision. If he hasn't progressed yet by the time, if he's still on the roster by the time his rookie deal is up, then we can have that conversation later down the road. But as to Richard's point, if you're going to just draft somebody at 8 and 23 and then keep it pushing like that, and then add free agents with the cap space that you have, then I'm all for keeping Zachary Sachet on the roster, still giving him opportunity to possibly come off the bench and see if he can find a role for himself and continue to develop and get better, and again find a spot for him on this team. Now, though, if you are going to try to make a big splash move, you are going to go and try and get a Jalen Brown or whoever may become available this summer in free agency or just in the offseason, then yes, depending on who the player is, again, if it's a Jalen Brown, which yeah, I'm not necessarily agreeing with
Yeah.
either, because I think between Jalen and Jalen, if you're the two Jalen's that we would have, I wouldn't necessarily want both of those guys on the team at the same time. I don't think that would be a really good fit. I think their games are too similar.
Also
And
be
I
very
just
expensive.
and that
Very
would be
expensive.
very expensive. And again, I think we've already committed to Jalen Johnson. Now I think we have to build around Jalen Johnson and,
Right.
and allow him to be that guy if we're really going to let him be that guy. So if again, I think Reese Shea, I think keeping him on the roster is fine, and at this point, we just need to supplement the core that we have now. When again, we talk about Jalen Johnson, when you talk about Nah, when you talk about Dyson, when you talk about Onyeka. So I think just supplementing the roster at this point with your 8 and 23rd overall pick, with going out and making some moves in free agency, or even if you want to, maybe make a smaller trade if you can. And I don't know, what that necessarily entails or who that necessarily is getting rid of, but maybe bringing in a more high quality role player. If you want to do that, then maybe that's something the Hawks can do. Again, I don't know what that necessarily looks like, but yeah, I think keeping Reese Shea on the roster is fine as long as you're not trading for a big time piece.
Now, before we shift over to the Atlanta Falcons, I want to throw out one more question relating to the NBA. Obviously, NBA Finals are coming up. Knicks Spurs. I have a couple parlays set out. I'm not gonna share that out on the
Parlays of
podcast.
the devil, Jackson. Leave him alone.
All right.
Starting off with Dylan, Knicks and Spurs in how many games?
I'm gonna take Spurs in 6. Now, I
Mhm.
have, and I will be honest about this. Even when the Hawks and Knicks series was still going on, like after what was I guess game 3 or game 4 when the Knicks started their 11-0 run that they're on right now, I was like, man, the Knicks can't, even if they end up beating the Hawks and continue this hot streak throughout the Hawks series, they can't continue to shoot this well. And, I don't think they'll be able to continue to do the things offensively they're doing. I think the defense was always going to be there because that's their bread and butter. It always has been. Even with firing Tibbs, I still think Mike Brown and the pieces that you had on that roster we're always going to, it's always going to be a good defensive unit. But I was like, man, OG Anunoby isn't going to continue to shoot the way he shot. This team is going to cool off offensively a little bit. Nope, they definitely have not. They still been shooting at between like 40 and 50% from three, 40 and 50% from the field. I mean, they have been lights out offensively through this hot streak and this 11-0 run that they've been on since they lost those 2 games to the Hawks in the first round. But they have not faced a team like the San Antonio Spurs. And
No, they have not.
again, the Hawks were able to win 2 games, and you give kudos to the Hawks, and that looks really good on the Hawks right now since they just absolutely breezed through the Sixers. And I don't even remember who they played in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't even remember at this point. They went through them so fast.
Come on. Cleveland wasn't
Pistons,
even there.
Cleveland, that's right. They played
Pistons,
Cleveland.
Cleveland. Yeah.
They breezed through those teams so fast. I mean, they are not going. They have not seen a team this good defensively in the Spurs in a while, and the fact that I think this is going to be a really defensive series. I think the one advantage the Knicks could possibly have is if Karl Anthony Towns puts his big boy pants on and he tries to post up Victor Wembanyama because I think he can body him. I think he can be a little physical with him, and I think he can wear him down low. Now, because even though Victor obviously has a height advantage, I think Karl Anthony Towns again, if you post him up down low and he tries to do some post work, I think he can wear him out in the post. Now, we know Karl Anthony Towns likes to live on the perimeter a little bit, shoot the
Right.
threes and all those things. So I'm not sure if that's how it's going to play out at all. But I do think that maybe could be an advantage that they take advantage of. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think ultimately the Spurs are going to get it. I think the Spurs are going to be able to do enough offensively to be able to put out the production offensively they need to. And I think defensively they'll be able to get the stops on the Knicks with Wemby doing what he does as a rim protector. And I think when you talk about Stephon Castle, when you talk about Julian Champagnie, when you talk about De'Aaron Fox now that he's back in the mix, I think they'll be able to do enough on the perimeter to slow down and neutralize Jalen Brunson, slow down and neutralize an Anunoby. And, I don't think Josh Hart isn't already not that much of a factor offensively, so I'm not too
Yeah.
worried about him. But I think they'll be able to do enough offensively to, score the points that they need to, game in and game out. And I think defensively they'll find a way to shut the Knicks offense down. So I got Spurs in 6.
Yeah, Dylan's a smart guy, man. I mean, I'm picking the Spurs in 6 as well. I think it's going to be a very entertaining series. I think all the
Yeah.
games are going to be very entertaining. I agree it's going to be a very defensive series, but it comes down to two things. One, the battle of the centers down low.
Yep.
Cat is going to have to be physical. And we've
Yes.
seen Cat be physical sometimes, but I don't think Cat can do that for a 7 game series. I think he'll get in his own way, kind of like what Dylan hinted at a minute ago. He likes to live beyond that 3 point line at times and play the perimeter game like a guard. When against a guy like Victor Wembanyama, you are going to have to commit to playing the center position. So Mitchell Robinson, the backup center for Karl Anthony Towns on the Knicks, is going to have to play a big role. And I know Mitchell Robinson is not 100%. He's dealing with the finger injury at the moment. Limited him in the last series. Wasn't really tested much because Cleveland kind of packed it up after game 2. But San Antonio will be attacking him nonstop. And we just saw how this series went. Victor Wembanyama is not going to give up like how Cleveland did in the last series. This Spurs team is hungry, they're young, and they want it now. And then the other matchup is between the Spurs guards and the Knicks guards. You got guys like Stephon Castle and the rest of the guys like De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Harper. Their bench is deep. It's going to take a lot for the Knicks to continue to compete with those guys day in and day out. At times, Brunson can be a liability on defense. Now, he's incredible offensively. He's going to give you 30 a game. But on defense, he can be a traffic cone at times. You're going right around him. So it's going to be a big challenge for the Knicks. I think they may steal 1 or 2 games, which is why I pick the Spurs in 6. But I think all roads lead to San Antonio, man. It's going to be an entertaining series, but I like the Spurs to get it. And Wemby's going to make a lot of people start having very tough conversations after he wins a Larry O'Brien trophy at the age of 23.
Now, I do want to shift over to Richard's favorite sport, the sport that we all are here to talk about today, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, heading into this draft, a lot of Falcons fans were down because they didn't have a first round draft pick due to the whole James Pierce Jr. Trade up situation. And I'm looking at some of the prospects you guys drafted in 2026, Avion Terrell, Zachariah Branch. And then you get the guy I really wanted for Philadelphia, Harold Perkins Jr.
Hmm.
2 years ago, everybody was talking about him being a first round talent. I want to
Yep.
start off with Richard because I know you have to go soon, but who's going to be the diamond in the rough prospect heading into the off season and heading into this next season for the Falcons? And who are you looking forward to seeing as from an off season acquisition this season?
Well, when we're talking about a diamond in the rough, I feel like it has to be Harold Perkins because we saw how incredible he can be when he was at LSU. His freshman year was insane, got hurt his sophomore year, wasn't really utilized to the best of his abilities his junior year. But when he was used correctly his freshman year, we saw what Harold Perkins can be. A couple years ago, people just kind of penciled him in to be the number 1 overall pick because of how versatile he is. And with the absence of guys like Caden Ellis, who has recently become a New Orleans Saint somehow, this will allow a
Ooh.
lot of opportunity for Harold Perkins to grow because he will be able to move around a lot as they look to see what role fits him best. And I think that's where Harold Perkins is at his best. When he's just kind of free roaming, bouncing around because he's such a freak athlete. He can line up on the edge. He can line up at middle linebacker. He can be an outside linebacker. He can play the star position if he needs to. Like he's one of those players. So I feel like these open holes on this defense will allow for Harold Perkins to continue to grow as a player. But if we talk about who I'm most excited to see, it's Zachariah Branch. Wide receiver coming in from Georgia, was really underused at Georgia, where majority of his catches were behind the line of scrimmage, but he was still making something out of nothing every time the ball touched his hands. I'm really excited to see him develop as a route runner, see him line up in the slot inside of guys like Drake London. I know Kyle Pitts is going to be used a lot more on the outside at the receiver position. So I'm excited to see Zachariah Branch line up in the slot and really show people that he can stretch the field and run great short and intermediate routes because that's really what the Falcons need. We have 2 big grueling receivers in Kyle Pitts and Drake London, but we need a guy that can just kill you in the short intermediate and stretch it down the field with his speed because Drake London does not have the greatest speed in the world, despite being a very good wide receiver. So diamond in the rough, Harold Perkins, but I am very excited to see what Zachariah Branch is able to look like in this offense once we get the quarterback position figured out.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of, and I 1,000% agree with everything Richard just said there. I just want to piggyback off a couple of things, starting with Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins probably went to one of the best teams he could have gone to in his position. Jeff Ulbrich is a linebacker whisperer at this point. We
Mhm.
saw what he did with Deion Jones in his first stint with Atlanta. We saw what he did with Devondre Campbell. He knows how to get the most out of the linebacker position. He did it with Caden Ellis last year. You saw how big of a role Caden Ellis played. He did it with Divine Diablo last year as well too. Divine Diablo, nobody really knew his name until
Nah.
he came to the Falcons last year, and that was kind of our diamond in the rough pickup as far as free agency goes last year. You saw what happened with Divine Diablo. So I think as far as spots he could have landed and situations he could have come into, Harold Perkins came into a great situation here in Atlanta. And I think that's part of the reason Ian Cunningham and this Falcons brass drafted him because they know they have Jeff Ulbrich to be able to develop him. So I am very, very excited about Harold Perkins. And I think Jeff Ulbrich is definitely going to be able to get the most out of him. And then going to Zachariah Branch, he's the one I'm most excited to watch as well, too. The Falcons have not had a guy since maybe even like Taylor Gabriel, who can just make something out of nothing. Who you can just
Mhm.
again, you can utilize his talents now that you know he's good at the things that he did at Georgia as far as getting the wide receiver screen, taking it to the crib. The Falcons have not had a guy like that in years, and so being able to have that guy that can make something out of nothing is something the Falcons desperately needed. That speed, that again, that yak guy, that is just something the Falcons have desperately needed for a few years now. And the fact that, to what Richard pointed out, him being able to develop as a route runner, so him being able to run the short and intermediate routes, being able to run the entire route tree, him developing into a complete wide receiver is going to be an amazing thing for the Falcons if they can get that out of him. And then, I'm sure at some point he's going to be, become a deep threat for the Falcons as well too. So I'm very interested to see what all they have him do this year. Are they gonna in his first year? Are they gonna stick to more of what he did at Georgia when they talk about just using him for wide receiver screens and the occasional deep ball, or are they gonna kind of let him off the leash in year one and let him run the entire route tree? I hope so. We'll see how fast they want to try and develop Zachariah Branch, but I'm excited either way because he is going to have some highlight reel moments for the Falcons.
He's a playmaker. He's a
He
he's a
is, man.
straight playmaker. We
Great
needed
playmaker.
this.
Now, I do want to piggyback off of what Dylan said, because Dylan, the last time you were on Sports Out of Pocket, we talked about the Falcons quarterback situation. We talked about the offensive scheme as a whole. You bring in a new offensive coordinator who doesn't have experience calling plays in Tommy Rees. And also a big detrimental piece to that Falcons O-line, Caleb McGarry retired. So you
Yep.
bring in Jawan Taylor on a short-term deal. You bring in Tua as the supposed, quarterback until Michael Penix Jr. gets healthy. What are your expectations heading into, the first half of the season, and what do you expect out of Tommy Rees and the offense from the Atlanta Falcons?
I would be a lot more worried about Tommy Rees as an offensive coordinator if Kevin Stefanski wasn't here. Like if it was just Tommy Rees, if we were just talking about Tommy Rees as an
Yes.
offensive coordinator, then I'd be like, oh man, oh no. But the fact that one, Kevin Stefanski is the head coach and coming along with him, who has a lot of experience as a play caller, then that's another thing. And then the other thing on top of that is the fact that Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees were just together in Cleveland. So that Kevin Stefanski knows what he wants to see out of an offense, and he's going to be a big part of the game plan. Now, Tommy Rees is going to be calling the plays, but Kevin Stefanski has said himself that he's going to be part of the game planning process as well. So the fact that we know that, I am a lot less worried about Tommy Rees because I know Kevin Stefanski is still going to have both hands in that Falcons offensive game plan. So with that being the case, I'm not too worried about the offensive play calling. Now, to your question about what I expect to see from the Falcons on the field and the quarterback position, look, this is a straight up, quarterback competition. Tua is a guy that you brought in, and it'd be one thing if Tua had already been a backup quarterback for a year or two, and you brought him in just to, really be the backup quarterback and to mentor Michael Penix Jr. But Tua was a starter last year, and he's coming in with the expectations of I have an opportunity to compete, and I have an opportunity to be a starter here, in which the Falcons have said this is an open quarterback competition. So it's not like, oh, they said, oh yeah, we're just bringing in Tua to, he'll have a chance, but this we really want Michael to be the guy moving forward. They haven't said it like that. They've said it straight up. This is a quarterback competition, and may the best man win. And
Yep.
I think Michael Penix Jr. has shown that he's going to be healthy enough, when it really starts grinding and getting going in training camp, when this quarterback competition really gets going. I think he's shown that he's going to be healthy enough to be able to do all the things that you need to do to have a proper and fair quarterback competition. So I don't think that will be an issue. But Michael Penix has some things that he needs to work on. Some things have looked good during these first couple of OTAs. The mechanics have looked a little bit better. His lower half has looked better. I know last year there were a lot of times when he was playing, he would get dead feet in the pocket. His feet wouldn't stay live, and he was throwing with a lot of arm, and he wasn't really driving and stepping and driving in the throws using his lower half, using his hips. So I think that has looked a little bit better. But again, it's early. It's just OTA. So we'll see how that continues to develop as we move further and further along into the offseason, into training camp. So it'll be interesting to see. And the Falcons overall have a very, very tough schedule. Don't let the schedule makers or the people who talk about, going off of last year's records and win percentage, stuff like that, bump all that. This is a tough schedule for the Falcons, and it's going to be interesting to see. But I think what's going to be best for the Falcons this year is you need to figure out what you have in Michael Penix. Now, I am hopeful that Michael Penix just straight up wins the quarterback competition and he just goes out there and proves that he is a franchise QB and he can be the guy for the Falcons long term. However, if Tua wins the quarterback competition fair and square, then we have to start having a conversation of, okay, well, if Tua's a starting quarterback and he plays well, depending on how well he plays, do you want to, bring him back or resign him? So things can get really, really murky for the Falcons if Michael Penix doesn't just straight up win the quarterback competition, or if he unfortunately, knock on wood, gets hurt again. We don't want to see that happen either. But things could get really murky. But I think what's best for the future of the Falcons is Michael Penix wins this quarterback competition and shows he's the long-term QB. But that there's no guarantee at all of that happening.
Right. Penix winning this job would definitely make life easier as a Falcons fan and as a
Yes.
member of the organization. I'm sure everyone agrees with that because Penix winning the job would go to show that he has really taken those steps forward because Tua's biggest asset is his accuracy.
Yes.
Despite having some down seasons in Miami, Tua has consistently been one of the more accurate quarterbacks in the NFL, and Penix's problem has been his inaccuracy. He completed, I want to say, 56% of his passes last year. It was either 56 or 59. I can't remember the exact number, but his accuracy needed to improve. So if he beats out Tua, that means one, his accuracy is improved. And if that's the case, that means he's whipping the ball all over the field because Michael Penix at his best is an outright gunslinger. We saw what he was able to do at Washington those 2 years. He was incredible, pushing the ball down the field, very accurate on short and intermediate routes. And like I said, his deep ball was beautiful. So if that's the case, then the Falcons may have something. But I'm not sure if that's going to be the case yet. I just
Yeah.
don't know. Head coach Kevin Stefanski has just been praising Tua's accuracy throughout a lot of OTAs so far. And I know it's still very early. It's just now June 2nd, and we still have a long way to go. But as of right now, it seems like Tua may be in the lead mainly because of his accuracy and the fact that Penix has still been limited. He's only, I think, just now being able to be cleared for 11 on 11s. And if not, he's getting very close. But Tua's taking majority of first team reps in 11 on 11 scrimmages because of that. And obviously, that gives Tua a slight step ahead. If it was up to me, I would pick Penix because it would make our future more certain. But honestly, I just want whichever quarterback is going to sit back there and be the most accurate because that's what this team needs. Because there's playmakers all over the offense. We talked about Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Zachariah Branch already. Jahan Dotson's been acquired by this team. The wide receiver room is solid. And we have Bijan Robinson, arguably the best running back in all of football. And it also kind of doubles as a receiver as well because how dynamic he is out of the backfield. So, despite me wanting Penix to have a lot of success, I wouldn't be opposed to Tua starting if they deem him the best quarterback because I really just want a guy that's going to go in there, be accurate, not make the big mistake, and just put the ball in these playmakers' hands. Because if you can do that, this team can be pretty successful.
Now, I do want to ask this question. We have about 4 minutes left, and I know, Richard, you have to go. We talked about expected results and offseason acquisitions. You see, we look at the NFC South as a whole. You see the New Orleans Saints drafting Jordan Tyson kind of to be the other wide receiver on the other side of the ball of Chris Olave. Panthers coming off a slightly above average, exceeded expectation season. And then the Buccaneers losing Mike Evans, but still retaining Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka. We'll see what happens when he has a full healthy season. What do you expect out of the Falcons relating to the NFC South in terms of placement?
Dude, I don't know. Like, honestly, I do not know. This division is very interesting because I think every team improved. I honestly do. The Falcons went out and added pieces. The defense may have gotten a little shakier with losing guys like Caden Ellis, but the Falcons had a good draft that has given me a lot of confidence. Like we already talked about a lot here, the quarterback position is going to determine a lot. Quarterback play is going to do a lot for the Falcons. If we can get average to slightly above average quarterback play, this could be a 9-win team despite the difficult schedule. But if we can get top tier quarterback play, this could be a 10, 11-win team. But if you look around the rest of the division, the same thing can be said there. Tampa Bay, we know what they are. They have weapons. Emeka Egbuka is emerging as a very good wide receiver in this league. And I think they hit a home run with the draft pick of Ted Hurst, the wide receiver out of Georgia State. They lost Mike Evans, but I believe Ted Hurst is going to be a great wide receiver in the NFL. So Tampa Bay is still going to be there. They're a solid squad. They can pretty much pencil them in for 8 to 9 wins every single season. Carolina has been very interesting because despite having an under 500 record, they won the South and made the playoffs. And if we can see Bryce Young take a step forward, it's no telling what this Panthers team can do because the defense is legit. The offense is coming together. They've been going out, getting weapons, trying to build the offensive line to protect Bryce. It all just runs on him. So if he's able to take a step forward, we can see them win the division again. And then in New Orleans, it's getting scary because adding Jordan Tyson takes a lot of pressure off Chris Olave. And we saw Tyler Shuck start to develop. They went out and got Travis Etienne at running back. Not sure what they're going to do with Alvin Kamara yet, but this is a team that is also improved. So when we look at the NFC South, yeah, it's still a down division. An under 500 team won it last year. But I think every team in this division can take a massive step forward. Notice, I have not picked a winner yet, and I'm not going to, because I think every single team in this division pretty much has an even chance. Like every division has 4 teams, so technically you have a 25% chance to win it. But all divisions aren't created equal. Every team doesn't have a 25% chance. The Raiders might have a 3% chance to win the AFC West. But I genuinely believe every team in the South has an even chance to win it. So I'm not going to make a pick. I'm just going to say, may the best team win.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I have no idea what to expect from the NFC South. And we were just talking about the Falcons and, quarterback and needing that good quarterback play and not sure what you're going to get out of the quarterback position when it comes to Tua or Michael Penix Jr. That's kind of the theme of the NFC South, excluding the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they are solidified at quarterback with Baker Mayfield. So I think Richard is right. You can kind of, spot them in for 8 to 9, maybe 10 wins or so. But with the rest of the NFC South, it's all about quarterback play, and the ceiling of the team relies upon how good a quarterback and how quality a quarterback play you get. We obviously talked about, if you get quality quarterback play here in Atlanta with either Michael Penix Jr. or Tua, this could be anywhere from an 8 to 11 win team. With the Panthers, obviously we saw, even though it was a down year last year for the division as a whole, we saw when Bryce Young is on his game, this Panthers team can be dangerous. So they could be an 8 to 11 win team if they get quality quarterback play out of Bryce Young. If Tyler Shuck, who the Saints, they got hot last year, went on a little bit of a win streak, and they showed, okay, maybe they got a little something with Tyler Shuck, and they started building around him by getting Jordan Tyson and other pieces. So if Tyler Shuck proves he's for real, and if they get solid quarterback play, who knows what the Saints can do this year? So this division is just really up in the air. And to me, the theme of the NFC South this year, again, besides Tampa Bay, is quarterback play. Because if all 4 teams in the NFC South get good quarterback play, this division could go any which way.
Now, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. We have about 10 seconds before the Zoom's about to meet. Richard, Dylan, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. This will be up within like the next 10 minutes. I edit pretty fast, but go follow Richard Reed. Go follow Dylan Matthews. Tune in to Hometown.